Thank you. I'm going to let Jason ask a follow-up question to that, please.
Just on the issue of outsourcing town functions in general, talk about outsourcing human services department. Do you support outsourcing any other functions of the town? That's an issue that was brought up at the ad hoc budget committee. What other areas are ripe for that type of move, if any, that you see?
I guess it's Mike. There are other possibilities. However, you know, they've talked about trash removal being outsourced, and when you get into the details, it becomes more onerous. I can't think of any right now that are appropriate at this juncture for outsourcing. So but I think it's a good idea, but to move very, very carefully, because there are often unintended consequences with outsourcing.
I know the DPW and our island home are now investigating several aspects of outsourcing in their departments. It's not something to agree or disagree with this at this point, because Jeff and Pam are pulling together the figures to see if it makes sense on paper.
Outsourcing activities of a public entity like municipality is a complicated issue, and there has some legal ramifications. As we go forward in any of that kind of discussion, we are actually in the process of asking those questions. That being said, there's two issues that I think came from the human service hearings that we had, public discussions. Accountability is one of them, and it's very important for us when we spend public funds to have a mechanism to hold whatever that entity is accountable. And the other question, I think, is what Carol alluded to. Is there really a cost savings? Is that the goal? Is that what we're trying to achieve? It may happen, it may not happen. I think that needs to be very clear before we make that kind of decision.
Better services, more efficiently delivered, is one of the goals I think this Board of Selectmen has taken on by looking at outsourcing as one potential way of dealing with the problem that was mentioned in an earlier question about salaries comprising 80% of the municipality's budget. I think that there are opportunities to be examined for outsourcing. The main advantage of outsourcing is that you have a contract for a specific task to be done, you pay that amount, and that's it. You don't have employees with the benefits and other things that go along with it. So I think there are opportunities. I think it is something that the Board of Selectmen needs to look carefully at to see where those possibilities are.
I did read part of that ad hoc committee thing about getting rid of the trash slowly but surely. I work for the federal government, and they're real bad at outsourcing. They usually try to, in my opinion, cook the books. They show you one figure, but then they're, like Whitey said, there's ramifications. They don't show you where they still spend money over here to support that outsourcing. So I think it's something we really should look at as a town and make common sense decisions and try to save as much as we can.
Thank you. Now I've got a pile of questions up here from the audience, so we'll start to work through them. And I'll ask Patty to respond first to this. What's the one issue, and one is underlined, you're willing to fight tooth and nail for if you are elected to the BOS?
Fighting tooth and nail, I think, is something that does characterize me at times. So I would have to say that the fiscal issues are still paramount for me. Overall, my commitment in the beginning when I took the seat on the board was to get our audits up to date, to improve our fiscal standing for bond issues and the like, and I do believe we still have work to be done there. It's a place where all of us are affected, no matter what the issue is, whether it's human services or whether it's the landfill. The fiscal responsibility of the town, our fiscal understanding, whether or not we're doing things effectively and efficiently are things that are just near and dear to my heart. And I don't believe that I will be backing off those issues at any level should I continue on the Board of Selectmen. So I would have to say that, generally speaking, it's the fiscal issues that I would be going to the boards for, and would continue to do that.
money really is at the heart of everything we do as both as a government and as individuals. You can't have what you can't pay for, or at least ultimately you can't. I think that it's very important for, again, us as a Board of Selectmen to make these important decisions, to pick the issues, to pick the battles that we're going to do. I certainly agree with Patty that the finances still need to be followed up on. We've done a tremendous amount of work over the last 2 years, getting the audits in order, doing budgets in very difficult straits. So these are the financial issues are the key ones.
I'd like to attack basically the core infrastructure of the town, basically the sewer and the waste treatment. I know we have 12 years left on the contract with the waste options, but I'd like to make sure that it will be over soon before you know it. That we know where we're headed, what's the most efficient way to transition and compost or send our stuff off island or have local contractors run the facility. And basically look at the numbers for the sewer and try to make it cheaper for everyone, or reasonably fair for everyone, and all the taxpayers.
I got 3. Fertilizers, we've got to limit the use of fertilizers to protect our harbor, our ponds. We need wind turbines out at the dump. I'll fight for that. And the shellfish management plan. Now, the shellfish management plan, I've gone out and raised enough money so that we can gift to the town to get it done so it won't cost the town any money. And that's the kind of thing I'm going to fight for, those kind of things. How do we get the things that we need done? Thank you.
Money, money, money. The finances of the town are so challenging this year, last year, and the year before, and it's going to continue for several more years down the road. As I said earlier, our town belt has to be tightened even further. It's not an easy thing to say, but I think it's a reasonable thing to say.
Thank you. Carol, would you hang on to the microphone, please? And this next question, is there any decision you or the board has made, you presuming if you're a sitting selectman, that was either wrong or a rush to judgment?
Thanks for saying yikes. Yeah, I hate being first too. Was wrong. I think the size of the police station was wrong. But it was never to say that the police department did not need a new station. They just didn't need that one. But that is water under the bridge, and now we simply must move forward on that. You.
Yeah, and on reflection, this is a tough question, but it speaks to that ego thing, so I'm just going to go jump right in. I think that in recent times, if I had to rethink a decision, it would be on the elimination of the human service budget that we did this year. Not because I don't think that down the road that might be a possibility, but I do think that we needed more time. I'm pleased with the board's actions. As typical of us, it's not hard to do, it's not easy to do, but we do take the time when we need to say, maybe we need to rethink this. We've given ourselves that time. I think that time will be valuable. We don't want folks falling through the cracks, and we certainly want the effective delivery of services.
It is a difficult question. Boy, I can look back over my life, and there are a lot of decisions, if I could, I would make differently. I like to look back over the last 3 years as a selectman, and I would say one of the things that I try to do with everything is to be careful, to be thoughtful in the decisions that I make. I do think about things. I can't think of any specific decision that is wrong. I know I took a lot of heat for the paving of Westchester Street when I was initially on the board. I would probably still make that same decision today, only I would have been a lot more clear up front about why I made that decision.
Just recently, last year, I watched Mary Gowacki go in front of the board and try to get access through Miller's Lane for her property that she's owned probably for the last 100 years, or her family has, and watched her get denied, and I thought that was a travesty. And there's also an article this coming town meeting, to further hamper her efforts to try to access her property. I believe she's just trying to give away the property to her grandchildren. And anyway, I watched the board deny her access, and I thought that was horrible.
I was hard pressed to come up with a rush to judgment unless I go back historically with the waste options contract, and I think that that was one that should have been more carefully designed from the beginning so that we wouldn't have all the situations that are facing us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Clifford, would you hang on to the microphone for this next question, please? As a selectman, what do you think is your primary responsibility?
Well, to make appointments and set policies, basically the board's obligations. So I think that sums it up. It's an easy one.
Okay. Wade?
I would like to say that I'd like to see the Board of Selectmen make a concerted effort to turn the economy around, such things as buy Nantucket, hire Nantucket, things like that, that we do have the power of persuasion in order to try to pull us out of this recession. We're beginning to come out, but not fast enough.
I would like or intend to provide, and I don't want to quite use this term, a stronger voice for regular Nantucketers. It's as simple to me as that. It's not meant as a criticism of the current board, but the town tends to become involved with the town. And that tenor, I feel, needs to be redirected.
You know, and stepping back from this, I actually thought through this a little bit today when I was getting prepared for this afternoon. You know, and ultimately, I think the most important responsibility we have is to listen. And that capacity sometimes makes us change our decisions. It sometimes makes better and informed decisions. But I believe ultimately what we do best is listen to you. We are always in a position of having to make choices, and they're not always easy. You may not always agree, but I think what I'm most proud of as a selectman is the number of people that have come to me and said, you know, I might not have agreed with you, but I like the way that you deliberated it, and I like the way you listened, and that to me is key.
It's hard to come up with just a few words as far as the primary responsibility. Certainly it includes listening, it includes being a representative of the community, because that is how the system works. We're elected to the highest office in the town. We make decisions, and I think it is those decisions that are our primary responsibility. It is our responsibility to make intelligent decisions that have the broadest public benefit in mind. I think it's important that we set in place practices and policies that will carry out the effective operation of government. That's what we're there for.
Thank you. I'll ask Whitey to respond first to this next one. Where do you stand on Article 68, which is a home rule petition requiring homeowners to use only fertilizers with 70% slow-release nitrogen?
I'm in favor of it. The reason being is that we've had a lot of problems in the harbor this past summer. We had this rust tide, which was probably caused by excess use of fertilizers and septic system runoff. Hummock Pond now is dangerous for dogs and people, and Myacomet Pond you can't swim in, and all of this has been caused by the nitrates and phosphates, which are going to be limited by this home rule petition if it passes. Thank you.
Strongly, strongly support it. There has been a year and a half of committee work that has gone into this. It is not aimed at one industry. It is one element of taking care of our waters and our island. So many of what I'm a layperson on this, so many of what I would call the food coloring for grass fertilizers are literally that. They are water soluble in our sandy soil. Not only is it our harbor, it's our drinking water, and this is just part of the thing. We have to deal with septic systems, so it's not aimed just at landscapers or homeowners.
I too strongly support the intent of this article. I don't think that any of us who've seen that picture